11 Worst and Most Cruel Golden Age Hollywood Parents. Hollywood's golden age was a time of glitz, glamour, and unforgettable stars. But behind the dazzling smiles and red carpet appearances, many child stars endured horrors that would shock even the most jaded moviegoers today. Their own parents, the people who should have nurtured, protected, and loved them, often became their greatest source of pain. Some exploited their children's talent for fame and fortune, while others neglected or manipulated them in ways that left lifelong scars. These are the stories of 11 of Hollywood's most cruel and damaging parents, whose actions left indelible marks on the children we grew up adoring. 1. Ethel Gum, the architect of Judy Garland's trauma. Judy Garland, beloved for her golden voice and unforgettable presence on screen, wasn't just a star, she was a product. And Ethel Gum, her mother, was the architect. Ethel recognized Judy's extraordinary talent when she was just 2 years old, seeing in her daughter the ticket to the fame she had always dreamed of but never achieved. By the time Judy signed with MGM at 13, Ethel had already cemented a pattern of relentless pressure. She forced Judy to follow strict regimens prescribed by studio doctors, amphetamines to control her weight, barbiturates to sleep, pushing her child into dangerous habits that would haunt Judy for life. And when it came to her earnings, Ethel's devotion was purely transactional. Judy's substantial income was largely spent on Ethel's personal indulgences, leaving the star with very little of the fortune she had earned. MGM staff reportedly nicknamed her the Real Wicked Witch, a cruel reflection of the film that would define Judy's career. Even in a Hollywood world notorious for stage parents, Ethel's relentless drive to mold her daughter into a product stood out as extreme. Judy Garland didn't just lose her childhood, she lost herself under her mother's control. 2. Bing Crosby, America's beloved tyrant. Bing Crosby projected the image of a relaxed, loving father, the perfect picture of American family life. But the reality behind the camera was chilling. Crosby's eldest son, Gary, revealed in his 1983 memoir, Going My Own Way, that he and his brothers were physically beaten for minor infractions such as gaining weight. The beatings, with leather straps, belts, or whatever was at hand, left welts and lasting trauma. Initially dismissed as a son's exaggeration, Gary's accounts were corroborated by his brothers, highlighting a disturbing pattern. A father who terrorized his children behind a facade of wholesome Christmas specials and cheerful performances. Audiences saw warmth. Crosby's children experienced fear. This duality makes his story one of the most haunting examples of hidden cruelty behind the image of perfection. 3. Joan Crawford, Mommy Dearest, the Nightmare Mother. Few Hollywood scandals are as infamous as Joan Crawford's relationship with her adopted daughter, Christina. Mommy Dearest, published in 1978, revealed a world of unpredictable rage, psychological torture, and physical abuse, including the notorious wire hanger incident. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Christina described bizarre punishments meant to enforce obedience. Wearing the same gift repeatedly until it wore out, night inspections of her hygiene and posture, and cold showers for perceived infractions. Even household staff confirmed these routines of cruelty. Beyond physical abuse, Crawford systematically disinherited her children, proving that control extended into financial manipulation as well. In Crawford's world, love came at a cost, and children paid dearly. For Maria Zaccarino, Natalie Wood's stage mother. Maria Zaccarino's obsession with fame began before Natalie Wood could even walk. A fortune teller predicted Natalie would be famous, but die in dark water, a prophecy that tragically foreshadowed her drowning years later. Maria began coaching her daughter as a toddler, teaching her charm and flirtation as tools for career advancement, often with older men in positions of power. Even accidents on set, like a broken wrist at age 8, were met with instructions to continue working, prioritizing career over safety. Maria's grip extended into Natalie's adulthood, creating psychological patterns that affected her relationships and contributed to her tragic, untimely death. The lesson is stark. A childhood molded for profit and fame often comes at an unbearable personal cost. 5. Shirley Temple, the stolen fortune behind the perfect smile. Shirley Temple, the golden-haired child star of Depression-era America, brought joy to millions. But behind her dimples and curls lay financial exploitation that would spark legal reforms decades later. By 18, Shirley discovered that out of over $2 million earned, equivalent to $40 million today, only $44,000 remained. Her parents, George and Gertrude Temple, managed her finances without oversight, spending lavishly and investing poorly. Beyond money, Shirley's personal development was sacrificed. Minimal education, few non-famous friends, and a childhood defined by work rather than play. The legacy? A reminder that even the brightest smiles can hide a painful, transactional childhood. 6. Mildred Francis, Lana Turner's passive enabler. Mildred Francis, Lana Turner's mother, may not have pushed her daughter into the spotlight as aggressively as some stage parents, but her negligence was equally damaging. When Lana was discovered at age 16, Mildred allowed, and sometimes encouraged, her involvement with significantly older men, enabling her rapid rise as a sex symbol while ignoring the psychological cost. This permissiveness carried long-term consequences. Lana's early sexualization and lack of parental boundaries shaped her relationships and the challenges her own daughter would later face. Mildred's passive exploitation proves that harm doesn't always come from forceful pressure. Sometimes it comes from absence or neglect. 7. Joe Yule Sr., Mickey Rooney's absent father. Mickey Rooney's father, Joe Yule Sr., was largely absent or abusive, seeing his son primarily as a source of income rather than a child to nurture. His alcoholism fueled violent outbursts, creating a childhood filled with fear. Even when separated, Joe exploited Mickey financially, forcing studio intervention to limit his access. Rooney's childhood highlights a different kind of cruelty, the absence of protection and emotional support, proving that neglect can be as destructive as active abuse. 8. Tippi Hedren, mothering on the wild side. Tippi Hedren raised her daughter, Melanie Griffith, in unconventional ways that exposed her to danger. At the Shambhala Preserve, Melanie lived among lions and tigers, sustaining injuries in multiple maulings. Hedren also allowed her underage daughter to perform in films with sexually explicit content, failing to establish proper boundaries. Though Hedren's intentions may have been rooted in progressive beliefs, the consequences were severe. Melanie's tumultuous youth demonstrates that good intentions don't excuse putting a child in harm's way. 9. Henry Fonda, the distant icon. Henry Fonda played warm, principled fathers on screen, but at home, his children experienced emotional deprivation. Jane and Peter Fonda both reported an absence of affection and approval. Criticism replaced encouragement, and after their mother's suicide, Fonda's emotional unavailability worsened. This story underscores a subtle yet profound form of harm, emotional neglect, which can shape a child's entire approach to relationships and self-worth. 10. Louise Beavers, father who tried to crush a star. Louise Beavers faced a parent actively opposed to her ambitions. Her father insisted she pursue domestic work rather than acting, reflecting limited expectations for Black women in early 20th century America. Beavers succeeded despite this suppression, hiding her success from her father to avoid conflict. Her story highlights the dual barriers of societal prejudice and familial opposition, showing how parental disapproval can inflict lasting emotional challenges. 11. Loretta Young, motherhood built on deception. Loretta Young's deception altered her daughter Judith's sense of identity. Conceiving a child with Clark Gable out of wedlock, Young orchestrated a secret adoption of her own daughter, raising her under false pretenses. Judith only discovered the truth in her late 30s, after years of subtle psychological damage and identity confusion. Young's case demonstrates that harm doesn't always come from abuse or neglect. Deception, even under the guise of protection, can leave deep scars on a child's sense of self. Hollywood's golden age may shine with nostalgia, but these stories reveal a darker truth. Behind fame, fortune, and glittering smiles, some child stars endured trauma, exploitation, and neglect at the hands of those who were meant to love them most. From active abuse to passive neglect, from financial exploitation to psychological manipulation, these parents remind us that fame is often built on the backs of innocent children, and not all Hollywood endings are happy ones.